Can you hear me? Hello. Wel, croeso mawr I Oriel Mission, a diolch yn fawr iawn am ddod. Mae'n hyfryd I weld bobl. Thank you ever so much for coming. Beautiful day, lots on, but a very special show to come along to, so thank you for choosing to come. And more people, we understand, are stuck in traffic, so may well come in as Kate and Claire are chatting, so we will just play it as it comes. I'm just going to introduce, I'm sure you all know, the artists, Kate Haywood, and Claire Curneen, artist and tutor, who are going to do a walk and talk in just a few minutes, rather than a sit-down, formal, in conversation. So, congratulations, Kate, yes. First and foremost. Thank you. Beautiful body of work, beautiful show. It has toured throughout Wales, and it's wonderful to bring it to Mission, because Mission has been pivotal in terms of the wider project, and it feels very fitting to finish, if you like, here. And your work stings in this space. So, yes, congratulations. I do just want to take the opportunity to thank people, because the slightly wider context of Kate's exhibition is it's part of a Language of Clay series, and it's a project that's been going for 4 years now. So the show opened here in November 2015 with Anna Noel, and since then there have been 27 solo exhibitions around 7 venues in Wales. And I looked up some facts and figures, nearly 150,000 visitors and 430 something participatory activities. So it's been a huge project, at the centre of which has been a really talented group of makers, and it's been wonderful to celebrate the breadth of ceramic artistry in Wales, if you like. So the show's opened, as I say, with Anna Noel, Justine Allison, Mickey Sloshink, Anne Gibbs, Ingrid Murphy and Kate. And it's been such a privilege to work with all of them. And I'm going to get emotional. I felt really proud to have had insight into the making and concepts and everything that artists bring to their work. So thank you to all the artists. To Mission Gallery, Matthew, Rhian, Deirdre, Kat, the whole team here have been amazing. So the project's been run through Mission Gallery. And I have to single out Rhian in particular, who's worked her socks off all the way along. So diolch yn fawr iawn. And also to the other partner galleries, Ruthin Craft Centre and Llantarnam Grange, Aberystwyth Ceramic Gallery and Aberystwyth Art Centre, Oriel Canvas and Craft in the Bay. So it's been wonderful to work across partners, and it's all been funded by the Arts Council of Wales, which has been terrific to have had that support. Thank you to the writers and photographers, including Matthew, who've been involved, and to everybody that's come along and joined in. It's been lovely to see so many voices advocating clay and ceramic practice and talking about the wider dialogue, sort of around, not just around concepts, but functionality and the breadth of ceramics. So, yes, big thank you. I'm not going to say anything much else, but I did just want to say a little bit about Kate. The first time I came across Kate's work was at your MA show, and of course Claire and Kate know each other through college, an MA course where you met, tutoring. And when I didn't meet you then, but first actually no, but first saw your work and just thought how beautifully made it was. And then the second time I saw your work was at BCB, British Ceramic Biennale, and you had a war piece, and I thought, oh my gosh, that's beautifully composed and it's wonderfully finished, and just the finesse of the processes and the techniques struck me, and the colour, there's this flash of colour. And then meeting you and being able to handle your work at a development day in Ruthin, it just started to realise quite how much depth and consideration and heart and soul and thought goes into your work. And as I say, since then it's been wonderful to work more closely with you. And this is such a terrific body of work and is going on and developed, I know, as you've been making. And it's no mean feat to have a solo show of this scale. So well done, your energy has been unfailing, and you're a wonderful person with a great spirit, as well as a wonderful artist. So I just wanted to say that.
Absolutely.
So, yes. I'll stop and pass you on, because I know you want to hear about Kate's work, and you two will have lots of interesting detail to point out. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Ceri. If I can, I'll just introduce myself again, Claire Curneen. I also just want to explain the change in the sitting down talk, which was going to happen at 2 o'clock here, but since most people are stuck on the M4 at the moment, we thought it's not really going to work with this number, so we're just going to do a walk and talk, and Kate was happy to do that. So rather starting at that side, we're going to start in the apps here, if you don't mind. Can I also just mention, we put 2 glass pieces out on the table that we were going to talk about. They're not handling pieces, so if you feel the desire to pick them up, please don't, because they're lead crystal glass and I'm terrified of them breaking. I thought if we could move closer, and we'll move maybe in here. And I thought we got everybody as we frame this piece. Kate, so we're standing next to the last pieces you made.
Yes.
Before you talk to us about that, and I think it's good for everybody to know, could you tell us a little bit about your starting point, as in where you studied, what you did, and what's kind of led you to this kind of these few years of your career?
Oh, going back in time.
Going back in time.
So my first BA was in jewellery design, so I guess at that stage I was working objects relating to the body, a mixture of materials, so metals and textiles and woods, but also working on that, the smaller scale. I think that's been important over the years. I've jumped between scales. So that informs a lot of what I do, because it's always in relation to the body.
So you started in a jewellery course?
Yes, so that would have been St Martin's in London. So I was born and grew up in London, and then had a studio in Greenwich for a long time. So it was a studio jeweller making sort of one-off sculptural pieces. And then Ramses moved into the studios I was working in. So I was going to ask you, what was that kind of connection? I ended up spending more time in his studio than mine, and then I didn't, and then I thought, it's so greedy, but I really want to do another BA, but I wanted to be sure, so I did an evening class for a year, and I knew I was just hooked. So I went back, I started an apprenticeship at Mayshill Pottery with Lisa Hammond. And I did that sort of the year before. Did my BA at Camberwell, carried along, so sort of evenings, weekends, and actually, a lot of the days, and then afterwards for about a year. So completed my BA at Camberwell, and then did various sort of teaching and technician roles. So I think like with the teaching and technician roles, you're picking up so many skills as well, aren't you, and ideas. So that's been central, really, I guess, to the way it's developed.
Yeah, and I think it's incredible when, I've had the privilege of sitting in Kate's space a few weeks ago to look at her work, and how, and as Ceri said, the kind of immense body of work that's here, and the kind of small intimacy of studio spaces, of which anybody here who works has a studio. Space is premium, isn't it? It's very hard to get a big space these days, and the fact that you can work on that small scale, not small scale, but be in a small place, and then your work to kind of have a physical impact in a larger space. I mean, this could sit in the space twice the size, and I think that's what's very interesting about the way you work, is that even though they're handheld, they have the capacity to fill space.
And I do find out, so I'm working into a space, so when I've had, if it's been a larger studio space or I've gone to a residency, I'll work into that space. So I guess on the MA there was loads of space. So some of the wall pieces I made were maybe 2 or 3 meters high. So I guess it's always responding to my environment, and because I am sort of chopping and changing and doing different residencies, I feel that keeps my work fresh, because I'm always responding to the environment.
Because so that kind of, as you said, that idea of keeping things fresh, a lot of this work is very much researched and rooted in earlier kind of studies, as in do you want to explain a bit more about your museum references in Manchester?
Back to the MA, I spent a lot of time in sort of the Pitt Rivers Museum, and then over the years I've developed a body of work alongside different research projects. So 2 or 3 years ago now, I was approached by Manchester Art Gallery to research the Mary Gregg collection of bygone objects. So we spent a lot of time with the curator there, and we just spent days on end just looking at it. It's such a random collection, because it was just one Victorian lady collector who just collected objects she loved. So it wasn't as serious as a lot of the collections. So you get random toys and things. So I think that.
And it's funny that you bring that up, that idea of things that she loved, and you look at these objects, and they do feel very much objects of, they're intimate, and they feel there's a sense of time around them. If you look at maybe the carving on this piece, there's a real sense of labour to the things you do. Is that quite important? Is that idea of time and?
I guess it is in the way the object looks, so there's that sense of investment. Not so I can say, I've spent 20 hours on this piece, but it just has a specific look, maybe almost like a timelessness, in that you're not overly aware of the making, so maybe you can look at it and it sort of operates on more a poetic level, and that it's not answering all your questions in one. It's maybe a slower viewing because of that. It sort of slows down that viewing process.
And that thing about of not knowing what the object is almost key to your work, because when you kind of walk around this exhibition, I think you're very curious about them as objects, and they feel familiar, but they're also at a huge distance from you. Where you kind of feel like there could be toys. You talk about toys, they kind of feel like you can play with them, you can move them around.
So you want that certain level of familiarity, but enough ambiguity, so you can all come to the work and you have your reference points. So it would work like a poem that you fill in the gaps, and it's going to be a different object to each person.
And is there any particular object? Let's take this one as we're standing here, that maybe you could talk more about that in this collection of objects.
Which one?
The thinking around what's going on there.
Maybe this one. So you've got 3 elements coming together there. So, it's more unusual because I have the one found piece there. So does it look familiar? Does anyone know what that piece is? And Kim, you can't answer because
you know.
Turtle. Turtle. Terrapin.
So it's a toy from the 1950s.
Close.
It's a what?
How close is that?
Toy from a child's toy from the 1950s.
Ah, okay. But what is it?
It's a hay stoop. So it's
it.
from a 1950s farmyard set. So it would have had colour on it originally, so it would, you'd recognise it, but covered in leaf, it's pulling it away, it starts to become ambiguous.
Can you see that? Can you see what it is? Yeah.
No.
If you look, it's like a stack of bundles of hay. That's
There's
it.
a base, you can see it's like
See,
bundles of hay,
bundles.
and then they're tied up and then clumped all together.
Okay.
Because of the reflection, again, the eye is sort of deceived a bit, but you can't read it immediately.
How would they play with that then? How would they play with that?
So you need to have like a farmyard setup, so kids would have tractors
Oh,
and animals, and so you'd move around.
That's a bigger size as well. It's bigger than it actually was, is it?
And so this is the original one from the 50s, and it's so it's covered in gold leaf.
So that kind of idea of that almost invader, it seems like the thing that shouldn't be there, but it's crucial to us to kind of engage with it, seems to be something that is recurring.
Yeah, so it's I guess it's a balancing of different objects. So you think you might understand, you think, oh, it's this, it's that, but it's placed next to this. So you're moving backwards and forwards between one arrangement. So it's a game really for the viewer, to sort of work it out and slow down the viewing process, as I said.
So that game then, what kind of game is it?
So I guess it's as Picasso said, it's like serious play, which I think is what all artists do, and it's so we're going back to that way that you think, before you have words. So it's not natural, but it's like maybe more intuitive in that way. So when I'm working with the materials, I'm thinking through the materials. So it's so like a different way of thinking, isn't it? And I feel when I'm doing that, like the possibilities are almost endless. Whereas if I start with a concept and a question to begin with, I feel like it's too
So you feel it's almost kind of like a retrospectively, you make things and then you kind of think back.
So
it's a way of understanding.
So if you fix things too early on with words, I feel you're chopping all your options off before you arrive. And I suppose that comes back to some of the things that you were looking at in the museum of these objects, like the woman who collected these objects she loved. She collected just because she loved them, and they may have had no value other than the fact they made sense to her. And I think your work often seems to bring you somewhere where it makes total sense, and then it throws you somewhere else, which is, I think, there's a kind of pull and push. It's that balancing and just being, unsettling enough, but having some familiar areas.
What about materials? You mentioned there about this introducing other materials. You start your background. You started in the world of the jewellery studio, and then you moved into the ceramic studio, and here you've moved into the glass studio. So you have great kind of understanding of craft practice, but you display it, you make your work in a conceptual manner. The work is art, it is sculpture, but it often refers to its making. Is that important to you?
It is important. So I guess deciding courses, I almost signed up for a fine art course, but I knew I wanted to have the skills. So I see the skills. Every new skill I have is is adding into my vocabulary, and then you have that creative freedom. That was just so important to me. But I feel it's taken me a long time to sort of gather all those skills. But I'm really happy now in the way I can explore. But I think if I'd gone straight into fine art, I'm not. Well, I guess you can never tell really, but.
But it's interesting because it's almost it really doesn't matter. It's I suppose it's the things you do in order to reach that conclusion of an idea, or and it doesn't matter what way you do it, but you need to do it this way, which I think is interesting in seeing the kind of your kind of sensitivity to material. I think is quite exceptional. I think you have an extraordinary ability to understand material and very very specific things. And I think I always remember on your MA you made these kind of little tiny little things, and they were so intimate. And I was always thinking, how is this going to happen? How is it going to? But you had big ideas for it, and it's always.
I have some, but at that stage it is very hazy for me. So I'm working towards an unknown point, which I find so exciting. But not everyone does. But so I'm still so I can feel that I'm moving towards it at that point. And when I finish the objects, they look familiar to me, like they've always been there. But I think it's just keeping it like free and open to be.
And do you think that's important as a rather than having kind of these answers of, like as you said, the title, we were talking about the title, it kind of came towards the end, rather than having that initial title at the beginning, does that title kind of restricts you in a way?
It does, so that's why I hold off until the end. But I think it's important for me, but it would just, not everyone works in that way. So for me, I just, I'm just excited by working in that way, and I think, because I guess, from the first BA, so I did work in the design world for a while, and I knew, it just didn't feel right with me, and it was exciting because you had a fresh project a lot, but you start with all the answers, and you're moving towards a point that you know. And it just didn't for me. But then some people like that, so important for me.
And because in some cases, some of your MA work or the piece that's in Manchester, I just want to say also that Kate's work is collected, but they're very they seem to be, the museums are very interested in your work, and I think that's a very, very good thing to have in terms of, in your career. They call it a museum object. I don't know what that means really. What is a museum object? But some objects some objects have the sense that is of museum quality. But I think you have quite a big hanging piece that was in the exhibition there, which actually felt more as much as a textile piece.
Yes.
In that sense. So
like a lot of the pieces next door, the sort of the fabric and the gravity helps to form the structure. So it just operates completely differently to the gravity of being on this surface.
And do you think that could be something that that maybe we see you in a textile exhibition in 5 years' time?
Why not? I guess at each stage.
Or a glass exhibition.
So I think I'll always sort of chop and change because it just keeps me fresh. I think I do get bored easily with making processes. So it just refreshes me to change. So textiles, or it's a shame the fees went up for BA, so I guess it stops me doing that.
Speaking of, I think that naturally would move us on to your most recent piece, which is here in the alcove. Probably, I don't know, can you hear me? Yeah. It's a bit echoey there. Just before we came in, Kate was talking about this being her last piece of work that she made for the exhibition. And
a couple of weeks ago,
and it's your favourite piece. It's the piece
that's closest to yours.
And I think the interesting thing about it is when I went to your studio, you had all these pieces laid out, which I knew nothing about, and it seemed that it was a suggestion for this. Tell us about it.
So this piece completes the project, but it's actually a process. I'm going back a few years in time to a piece called Amulets that I made shortly after the MA. Similar processes, but I've taken elements that I've sort of developed over the year to feed back into the object. So in a way, it's sort of a beginning object and an end object, and it's the starting point for the next sort of probably year of work, scaling up.
Because it feels as if it's interesting as a ceramic object, and people who know about clay and ceramics, you kind of understand there's certain kind of limitations to it, and particularly firing porcelain at high temperatures, it warps, it shifts, it changes. But you've explored quite an interesting, almost bamboo scaffolding way of putting something together, which, as you held it, it actually moved.
Yeah, so there is a give in it, but it makes it quite strong. If I'd, if it was rigid or glued, that would make it very fragile because of a slight twist, and it would snap. But there is like a lot of strength in there, even though it looks ridiculously fragile. So I like that contradiction of the materials. Really.
Is it tied together or something?
So it's
with textiles,
with a silk thread.
And did you make that structure intuitively, or did you have a plan?
Yeah,
you just went.
No, and that's the lovely thing with the porcelain when it fires. So they twist like subtly in different different ways. So as I add each piece, nothing's straight, so you have to adapt to those curves as you go along, which informs how it develops.
And what is there a title to this piece?
Room.
room. Okay.
REW, so a lot of the titles from this exhibition comes, Robert McFarlane was the nature writer, so his recent book, Landmarks, so he's sort of compiled a list of vocabulary that's linked to sort of land or a sense of place, so it operates in the same way as a lot of the work. It's giving a sense of space, but always is quite forgotten and lost. So it's pulling those titles back, but so that ambiguous, and maybe people will go, we might have a little search and then think, oh, how does that relate to it? So this is linked to maybe like pathways and structures.
I think, can we maybe just move to this side of the gallery as you see this obviously the colour is this, it's a real kind of seductive, rather kind of almost sweet colour, and that sense of playful, yeah. And when I look at your work, there's often a sense that they are playful and they're like games, but there's a sweet, but they repel you as well. They have the ability to draw you in and push you away, draw you and push you away, in that you're not sure what they are. Is that, when we look at this composition here, they feel very ceremonial, almost like rites of passage, almost like things that are used in religious ceremonies, but they also look like tools as well. They feel that they...
Yes, there is often a suggestive function, and I guess with the textile element and the way they hang, it does make you think of more ceremonial objects. But then, there's a layering, so there'd be a lot going on there, so you don't read everything at once.
Because I tend to look at things and connect it to the body as well, because my work dealing with the figure, so a lot of these feel, I was up at the stables recently looking at horses' bits and things between the mouth of something, the idea that these attachments to the
part of a bigger structure. And I guess with that dual background, a lot of those forms are, are sneaking in, and a similar scale as well, so you think of your body.
Because they're very much of the hand as well.
Yes.
If you pick them up, they feel like talismans.
Yeah, well, there's an action. This piece here, there's 3 elements, and you wonder, has the blue, has it transferred from one object to the next? So when you're looking at it, you've got that sort of action in mind. So it's so if your mind and your body is maybe connected more with this type of work.
And that use of the wall is interesting, because I suppose that's the one thing with you can move very comfortably between kind of more plinth-based objects to wall-based. Is it? Do you have a preference?
I think if I'm working solely on one, I yearn to do the other.
Whatever you I wish I wasn't doing this.
I think after Manchester with that, the larger wall piece, and then move on to more of these. I started with a lot of these pieces before, and then a lot of these were later works, weren't they, the wall pieces?
I think that's interesting, because there's an assumption, I think, that people think that, because you're an artist or a maker, that you really love doing everything you're doing, and you don't. It's kind of the sense that just because you're doing it, it's an absolute, you love it, you love doing it. And a lot of the time is the actual dislike of doing it. It's just getting you to a point.
Yeah, but I think I would, so the piece round the corner there, how long was I? It was sanding those parts, so I don't think I could spend a year
doing that.
Just making those. So, but I guess I'm lucky that the practice is so fluid. I can jump and change. So for me, there aren't really many things I dislike doing at all. But I remember being a jeweller and just spending hours polishing silver to get the right finish. I just remember thinking, I don't want to do this forever. Well, I never get bored of clay. It's the best material.
Well, there's almost like 2 things I'd love to point everybody to. One of my favourite objects in the exhibition, I'm sure you'll all find something, because everything here, there's not a repeat. everything is really individual. So sometimes you'll see work that you will find, and it'll be a repeat of the last one, but maybe slightly better or slightly different colour. But this object here, when you get a chance, this little object here, and it is over there as well. There's something, I remember seeing that with you in a cafe, very early on, and talking, and you had it in your pocket, I think, or in your handbag.
I had like a big Sainsbury's bag.
That's right, yeah. You were looking at it and figuring out and talking about things, technical things. But there's real tension in it as an object, so
because it's just solid, so it would have been thrown on the wheel as a drum form, and then just carved into, so that you sort of revealing it from material. And I think that compression comes about from that, because if you were assembling it and sandwiching things separately, I don't think
it would just be very different, completely different.
Have you ever thought of carving ivory instead?
I have, yes. So I did a mini masterclass in like stone letter carving, but I would be.
Don't you know?
I would be really So I'm thinking, scaling up.
Half of ivory, is it?
Not ivory, I guess, because of the obvious reasons. But maybe alabaster or like marble would be amazing. But maybe if I could collaborate with someone who had for those skills. I mean, obviously you couldn't turn up somewhere tomorrow, and it takes a lifetime, doesn't it, to develop those. But yes, I'm always thinking of new materials that I could use.
Okay, just a general question. How long did it take you to make all these?
So this was roughly a year.
A year's work?
Yeah, although I knew before when I was involved with the Manchester project, so while I was doing that, I was thinking, so it's probably 2 years in terms of thinking, but a year's worth of making, so I was ready to go with the making when I started. It was, all ready.
Very, very intense hours, I'd say, in that year.
And with Manchester stuff, you said earlier on that it was quite big. Is it a piece of the Manchester Museum or something that's quite big?
Yeah, so from the floor it's making like that, so it's assembled from smaller elements.
Oh, right. Because sometimes when I look at things like this and that, they look like maquettes, right? And they're like, as you were saying, carved out. Would you consider choosing a couple just to make it even bigger?
I'd love that, and that's my plans for the future. So I can imagine these sorts of objects, boat size. That would be amazing, but in porcelain. But I think, but to change materials, that's so exciting. That all those possibilities open up. So yes, I would love to do that.
Do you think something would be lost in doing that?
No, but I think there will be completely new objects, and they'll have a different feel to them. So,
I think that beautifully brings us to the one last thing I want to show you, and I think we'll probably round it off then, and people can ask you questions. So you talked about the dense solidness of the carving, the weight of it, which contrasts absolutely opposite to these two exquisite objects. And you need to come close for this, because as I said, they're not handling objects. I'm allowed to hold one of them, but Kate, can you hold the other one?
Yeah.
I have a fear of glass because I cut a tendon in my hand, and
I did before I started to work in glass.
right, yeah.
Okay, right. Just into it. How much would that cost you if you dropped it?
I don't think I don't know. That's kind of a.
Is it crystal glass, you said?
It's
well, I guess
like
the cost
glass
of the material is nothing.
Yeah.
Okay.
But what's interesting about it is that you have something that your incredible ability to handle material, and I think you talked also about working in a studio, but then also working on in a different environment. So, for instance, can you explain about the glass project you did?
So this year, I was just amazingly lucky with this project. I was invited to work with a master glassmaker called James Mastery. So this is collaborative work. So I was assisting with this work, but we were using all the skills that this amazing artist has amassed over 30 years. So it was a challenge for me, because I had to put into words a lot what I was making, which is we were speaking over there, and I mentioned, I'm not thinking with words at the beginning. So actually we were drawing with chalk on the floor as we were making, and sort of making our own shorthand, I guess, to describe things. But this process is so quick, so often we could create something and I could say, no, make it smaller, bigger, could we try this? So it was,
I think that's what's interesting when you're working with a team who, like, for example, you can carve and sit isolated on your own, but if you're working with glass, you need the glass foundry.
So they might work with 4 or 5 people on a project,
and you're working very quickly, so it's almost like a very different.
Yeah, it's exciting.
I think it's extraordinary that you go from
and
this.
the scale with these, because I'm not physically strong, so but some of them were, they're massive pieces, and so visually they look quite light, but they're just so heavy. But there's no way I could have done that on my own. So it's so exciting to be able to collaborate in that way.
Yeah, I think they're extraordinary things. I absolutely can't get over them. Do you want to explain the interiors? These are really.
If you can hear this, that's glass inside. It's black glass, and they're called stringers. So they're stretched when it's molten into like a hair thickness, and then you can snap them all. It's really satisfying. But it looks like if you're making is it toffee or caramel, where sugar sort of sets. It looks and it feels like that. So that it's the interior, but from a distance there's that.
But what's wonderful about the fact that it's such a they will cut your finger off. That glass is so sharp. And the whole irony of this as an object, I think, is brilliant, because it's telling you one thing, but there's another thing involved, and then you have the feathers.
Nicer material, soft feathers.
So it's filled with feathers, glass and feathers. I mean, how perfect is that?
So did you do a design for the glassmaker with these?
No,
you
not
literally
really.
just
We drew on the floor. I did a lot of travelling, so I would sketch on my journey, so take all that material with me. I just completed the project in Denmark, where I was looking at prehistorical objects, and at the Yorkshire Museum, so I had a lot of resources, but I think James is so gifted, he's worked with a lot of artists before, that he could sort of predict what I was trying to say.
Right,
so it was lucky in the way we worked well together.
I think I think it's probably best to throw it out to if anybody wants to ask a question. I know that Kate has probably answered quite a lot of things. Is there anybody here who wants to ask a question? As we're coming towards the end, I know we've just seen people coming in. Is there anything you would like to ask Kate, or you can hold your question and we'll be wandering around the space if you'd rather do it that way.
I've got a question, observation really. For me, when I look around it, it's like you're trying to make man-made objects organic, right? So you've got all these sort of unnatural shapes, but then you've smoothed them off. I mean, with these things and that. So there's a sort of a conflict there.
Yes. It's not one thing or the other, is there? So it's
you're not replicating it. I'm just wondering, what was your early work? What did that look like?
The jewellery work is similar in a way. So my thesis was linked to surrealism. So I guess sort of poetic objects, and the uncertainty of the feeling that an object can give you. So although it was completely different, I can see links all the way along that's taken me to this stage. But
surrealism, see, that I think that suits this quite well, really, doesn't it?
I guess a lot of the technical skills I would have learnt in a pottery, making functional ware. So it's, I guess it's the accumulation of different experiences.
Are you quite comfortable just using black, white, little bits of colour dotted in?
Yes, but that may change. Yeah, that may change. But I love the white on the white. How you're so aware of the form and a lot of subtleties of the light as it hits the white. But maybe coloured clays, maybe next year.
Have you been to Iceland?
Not yet.
Because I can imagine Iceland in winter will be right up your street.
I feel the cold.
It's all mostly white, I should imagine, but they've got these areas where they're volcanic, so they're black. They've got these black seas, a bit like Aberafan on a good day.
I haven't been there yet.
But again, with these massive and there's this extraordinary lack of colour, I suppose. Could just well be, you know, something could give it a bit of a boost.
And I think that's a very good end to this kind of discussion. And there is so much to look forward to in Kate Haywood's work. I can't wait to see what happens in 5 years' time. I think you're an extraordinary artist, and you should be absolutely delighted with this, which I think most of you should be too. Can I just also mention, this work is for sale. I'm not sure if there's a collector plan thing here. This work is for sale. I would urge you to put your hand in your pocket, because this work is being collected by museums. And there's a real...
You can't afford it now, then.
Well, you can't afford, but you can now. And before I just end that, there's another person in the room, Tony DeJesus. I don't know if I've actually pronounced that correctly. Tony has work in the other space, the shelf gallery area next door. Very, very beautiful work too, so do go and have a look at his
Can
work.
I just say quickly, thank you
Yes.
so much, Claire, for coming here
Not
and
at all.
doing this today.
It's a pleasure.
Thank you so much. And for Ceri and Rian, thank you so much. I've had just the best time, the best year working with you. I've learnt so much. And I'm just honoured.
Take that out of your hand.
Yeah, but you took me, I was part of the project, so thank you. Yeah.